Good afternoon and welcome to TalkSports. It's our weekend program, it's Saturday Sports Special. And, it's nice having you again, live from Brooklyn, New York. And we plan to have a very good show. Well, lots in store, I can tell you. And particularly with boxing, as we indicated in our promo, that boxing would take the spotlight this weekend, as you have been hearing, if you have been following the local sports news, that boxing is back. As they say, let's make boxing great again. And this afternoon, I have with me the newly elected president of the Boxing Association of Grenada, Inc. His name is Mr. Davis Adams. Adams himself is a former boxer. He's a boxing coach. He has been involved in boxing for the better part of probably 20, 30 years. We'll hear lots more from Davis Adams. By the way, it's not his first time. He has been on the program. He was on the program last April, and we invited Mr. Adams to be on the program this weekend to speak about some of the immediate plans for boxing in Grenada as they try to revive the sport of boxing. It has been probably 4 years now. We haven't had a boxing tournament in Grenada or boxers in action in Grenada. And boxers have been, could you imagine you have been training and preparing and nothing happening for 4 years? Yeah, that to me has been a problem. So let me invite Mr. And welcome Mr. Davis Adams to our program this afternoon. Good afternoon to Mr. Adams.
Good afternoon to you, Michael. Good afternoon to you. You're
Yeah.
viewing public, of course, and we know you have a very wide audience throughout the length and breadth of North America and the Caribbean, and of course, Grenada.
Mhm.
Good afternoon to everyone, and it's a pleasure to be on and to be able to participate and contribute in affairs related to Grenada, especially sporting activities, of which I'm passionate
Awesome.
about and I'm a fan of. Yeah.
Mhm. Right. So before I go on, I just given briefly in the introduction your involvement in boxing. If probably you can tell our viewers your involvement in boxing, and I said it could be probably 20, 30 years, you know?
Yeah, it's quite a while. As a matter of fact, probably more. I would have started boxing somewhere around 1980. So if you think of the involvement in boxing, that's over 40 years. Of course, I boxed for Grenada, represented Grenada as a national boxer from 1985 to around 1990, a period of about 5 to 6 years. I participated in several OECS boxing tournaments as a boxer for Grenada. As a matter of fact, the first OECS tournament that was held, it was held in Grenada in 1986, I think, 85, 86. And I won a silver medal there, having made it through to the final, fighting 3 successive nights. I won a silver at the 1987 OECS Championship also. That was held in Antigua. Again, that year, Grenada clean swept almost all of the medals and went into the Caribbean Championships. And then, of course, I put down the boxing glove to an extent because as a teacher, I wanted to go to Teachers College. And so I went to Teachers College, tried to box between 88 and 90, but it became very difficult to box between those times. And then I recognized that, of course, I had a profession, I had other things to do. And so instead, I took up the issue of coaching. And so in 1998, I would have gone to the Commonwealth Games as a coach with one boxer called Paul Peters at the time in 1998. Then I would have gone to several high-level boxing coaches workshop, especially one in Mexico. Well, two in Mexico, and I was certified higher level boxing coach by the North American, Central American, and Caribbean region. And then I probably was one of two higher level boxing coach as certified by Pan Am then for quite a number of years. Went to Australia with a number of boxers, including Jewel and a couple of the boxers, Lewis. And then we went to England, Kenneth Joseph, Sebastian Steele. We went to Manchester, I think that's 2006. And then, of course, other duties called, and that's when I kind of took a backseat for a while, but have always been involved in advice. And so I'm back in a primary function at this time in the area of administration, which for me is needed in boxing if we are to make the sport great again. So probably that's a brief history of me in my involvement in boxing. But of course, I'm a school principal, been in the teaching profession for way over 30 years. And it's just a pleasure to be able to serve and to be of value.
Well, we do need quite a few of folks like you who, as we'll say, prepare to give back to the sport. You will probably say the sport brought you around the world, and thus you don't mind sharing that experience with others or giving the opportunity to others for for that, especially now where there are more opportunities available in sports than probably when you were back then in your time. I assume a couple of times you mentioned participated in probably Pan Am, CAC, Commonwealth Games, all these sort of things, and so you have been around boxing for quite a while. Onto the matter now of boxing, and you did mention about making boxing great again. Davis, boxing has been quite dormant. I mean, except for you folks, you know, communicating with each other and things like that. At a national level, boxing has been quite dormant. Why that has been so? What was the reason why boxing has been quite dormant for the past probably 4 years?
It was a combination of factors that I think I'll try to see if I can be as illuminative as possible with the reason why boxing has been dormant. We know, of course, if we were to give a background to boxing in Grenada in the 80s and the early 90s, mid 90s, where whenever boxing went out on activities to represent Grenada with athletics, with whatever area, whatever games, whatever championship, if there's one sport that made Grenada shine, was the sport of boxing. And we've had tremendous potential, tremendous boxers over the years, starting from the 1980 Olympics in Los Angeles with Bonnie Wilson, right back to, tremendous boxers like Kenneth Joseph, Joey Lewis, Alex James, just to name a few. If I left out any, I ask you to forgive me. Tremendous boxers. And so there was that passion, that desire, that interest throughout the length and breadth of Grenada, Carriacou, Pidimati. As a matter of fact, anywhere you say boxing was, you'd find a huge crowd. And that was the culture that I got into when I got into boxing. And then we noted that there was a decline, not in the potential of boxers, but boxing was affected by the fact that at some point the home of boxing, which was over on the Carenage, it was moved to accommodate the National Lottery Authority. And I don't think we ever really recovered from it to a great extent, although there were opportunities if we were willing to take hold of it or pressure our authorities or sports management to be part. So once that gym was moved, that was like the center of getting all boxers from St. George, St. Andrew, St. David, St. Patrick. They were able to congregate on the Carenage for easily, and they did not have a problem. And then when that was moved, you found that it became more difficult. We tried to establish gyms in Laborie, in River Road, and in other areas, but it became difficult for boxers to attend those because the cost of transportation and so was a little bit on the prohibitive side. And then finally, of course, it went down to administration between 2015 and now. And you could say the real downward spiral took place between 2015 and now, again, to a number of factors. You had the president then, Johnson St. Louis, who was not well, and of course, may God rest his soul. And he died a couple of years ago. And then the sport was taken up by other members who considered themselves, who were supposed to take the sport forward. And because of the lack of vision, the lack of passion for it, there was no progress being made, and you have boxers not being able to get the best out of themselves. As a matter of fact, if I should tell you, The last boxing tournament, local boxing tournament that took place in Grenada was in 2018, just over 4 years ago. As a matter of fact, it took place in Carriacou. And since then, there has been a whole heap of administrative issues of discontent, conflict between boxers and administrators. And I stepped in when I recognized what was happening. Dr. John, who was part of it, also tried to reform the organization. And there was so much pushback taking place that it became extremely, extremely difficult to do that. So that probably sets the stage for some factors that are specific that I should talk about. So between 2015 and 2019, there was no election, but based on the constitution, election should have been held every 2 years. But between 2015 and 2019, there was no election. When election was called in 2019, um, members were called out, and by that time, the Olympic Association had gotten wind that boxing was going through a phase, so they invited public participation, and I did not fail to go. As a matter of fact, I have a letter here from the Olympic Committee that invited participation and past members to come back and try to give the sport, um, bring the sport back to where it was, and so I decided to attend from then, paid my dues, and was to be part of the running of boxing. So I attended. When election came in 2019, what we found was that the document that was used to run the election, to guide the election, when it came onto the floor, our 2020 amended constitution, when it came onto the floor, what our constitution was saying was different to the new document that was given to the returning officer then. And so a motion was moved from the floor that that document could not be used. And so there was some issues on the floor in 2019 as it related to that election. Because there was no solution to the problem, the returning officer, who by then, and once the returning officer had already set the stage, he dissolved the executive. So the executive was dissolved in 2019. Having dissolved the executive, there's no way you could put it back. So what happened was the returning officer mandated, gave us the advice, go back, sit and get yourselves together as to which document should govern the election, because we have one constitution and then another document came on. And from there, what we had to do now was, seeing that there was no executive because it was dissolved, we had to, we decided, the membership decided to appoint an interim president. And we once again appointed Johnson St. Louis. And of course, he had no executive, but he would liaise with people on what has been happening. And for the period, and there was a period of time in which we were supposed to come back to have the election. That never happened. No election was called to end the year 2019. And so that went on for a number of years, where no election was called. We had no executive. We had an interim president. And of course, that was unworkable. Of course, Johnson went on to pass. And so that sets the stage for the Constitution 1 being the stumbling block for having the election in 2019 being governed by an interim president for a couple of years before we could have had the next election.
Well, quite a bit said there. So after the passing of the late Johnson St. Louis, and, things got back on stream or whatever it is, where the whole issue of the Boxing Association of Grenada came on, and I wanted to give some clarity on that as well, because there is what was once the Boxing Association of Grenada, and then there is now the Boxing Association of Grenada Incorporated. Okay,
Correct.
so was there a situation where an organization was running the affairs of boxing without being registered? Or, give us some clarity on what was Boxing Association of Grenada and now Boxing Association of Grenada Incorporated.
Excellent. So because there was no election between 2019 and 2021, of course, the members got together. We wrote to the Olympic Association. Of course, prior to the 2019 election, let me state that prior to the 2019 election, the Olympic Association wrote to boxing to tell it to get its house in order. And we have letters to corroborate that.
When
Um,
you say get your house in order, it means therefore that the Olympic Committee took a very what I would say a non participatory um, process. I mean, non-involvement, non. I mean, what you mean when they say get your house in order? Then, in terms of
Fortunately, they were involved.
what you interpret it as.
Yeah, so they were involved. They were participative because they were they wanted us to have an election. They took, as a matter of fact, a primary interest in the
Mhm.
association. So let me read you this letter.
Oh, so it wasn't really a hands off. It wasn't really
No, it
hands
was not
off.
hands off. It was not hands
Okay.
off.
Mhm.
Let me read you this. And this came from the legal committee of the Grenada Olympic Committee. It says, following circulatory submission of an email correspondence from Mr. Johnson St. Louis, interim president of the Boxing Association of Grenada, Mr. Johnson Dion, former treasurer of BAG, and Dr. Deborah Stevens John, immediate first vice president of the Boxing Association of Grenada. The committee met on the 30th of November 2019 and reviewed the information submitted because the Olympic Committee was written to express the issues that we were facing. These documents set out the following. The election of the executive of BAG, scheduled for the 27th of April 2019, did not take place as scheduled, and an interim president, which I would have explained, had been put in place. One of the reasons for the stalemate being the dispute over the criteria for eligibility to run for the post of president of the BAG. The parties to the dispute, and of course, that's where Dr. Deborah Stevens John was party to. The parties to the dispute made reference to March 2013 Constitution and an amended officers and an amended 2015 Constitution. The main area of focus in these two documents being Article 8, Officers and Function, which set out the eligibility criteria. The issue was referred to the International Boxing Association in accordance with AIBA statutes. There has been no response or acknowledgement from AIBA on the matter, and that was done, and that was the GOC writing. The committee, which had its legal team, said the 20th Constitution was purportedly amended in March 2015. An election was held in November 2015. So it was amended in March, but elections actually held in November. By virtue of this amendment, it is assumed that the president would have been ineligible at the last election, what that was supposedly held in April 2013. In essence, if it's 4 years, the person could not be eligible. Therefore, he would have to be incapable of serving for a period of 4 full years. Additionally, the 2019 election ought to have been scheduled in November of 2019, but it was called in April, as I would have said, based on the provision of the 2015 amendment. For any executive council member to be eligible to be nominated for the post of president, therefore, as at April 2019, no legitimate president could have been elected. Should BAG rely on the 2015 amendment, no one is currently eligible to be nominated for the post of president, as a premature disbandment of the November 2015 Executive Committee resulted in no member serving for a period of 4 full years. Based on the aforementioned information, the committee recommended to the Board of Directors of the GOC, subject to determination of what, if any constitution is enforced, that BAG should schedule a general election and seek to regularize the affairs. The GOC Board of Directors subsequently met with interested parties in boxing. So that gives you a snapshot of how active the GOC was in trying to facilitate an election where the contention was the Constitution.
Mhm.
And the members present could ascertain that the last document that came to govern the election in 2019, it was never ratified by an AGM.
Oh,
So it was only one constitution we could have worked with
constitution.
in
Uh,
2013, which would have made everybody eligible to run for president because then you would have served 2 years.
okay. So that was the case. It seems to be a lot of legal issues and constitutional issues regarding Boxing Association of Grenada, Inc. But coming back to the substantive point or question, what is different now? Because you're now the president of what is called the Boxing Association of Grenada Incorporated, and there was an existing Boxing Association of Grenada. So give us an idea of what has happened between that period. And I'm talking about a period of, was last Saturday was the election?
Correct.
And just prior to that, I mean, was there an illegal body? I mean, what has been happening?
Uh, yes, I like those interrogative questions, Bascom. So let me put it this way. When no end was in sight after the GOC asked us to get our house in order, no end was in sight. Of course, Johnson St. Louis died within that time. May God rest his soul. And from what I know, we had no executive, but a gentleman by the name of Neil Roberts, who was the secretary to Johnson St. Louis when we had an executive, seemed to have been considering himself the executive of the BAG. And because during the time Johnson was alive, they wrote to the Olympic Committee, I don't have a copy of that letter, to let them know that the Boxing Association will manage their affairs. And the letter came from a lawyer to the Olympic Committee. When the letter came to the Olympic Committee withdrew itself from the affairs of boxing. And I have a letter to tell you what the Olympic Committee said. Let me read that letter that was sent on the 8th of June 2020 to Mr. Johnson St. Louis then. Read letter dated 8th of June 2020. That letter came on the 10th of December 2020. And Johnson sent a letter to the Olympic Committee on the 8th of June 2020. That's a year plus after the election should have been held. Read your letter. As previously indicated to you, the issues raised in the subject letter were referred to our attorney for legal advice. Arising from their recommendation, I wish to inform you of the following. The Grenada Olympic Committee will no longer attempt to facilitate election of a new executive of the Boxing Association of Grenada.
Oh, so there is now the hands-off approach by the Olympic Committee.
Correct. As of 2020, they were no longer involved in the internal conflict that has now arisen within the Boxing Association of Grenada. So they said they will no longer facilitate election of any new executive of the Boxing Association. In essence, go ahead and do what you have to do.
Okay. All right. So that was the situation, and that was a substantive matter coming out of that letter from the Grenada Olympic Committee then.
That's correct.
So what happened thereafter?
Good. So what happened after is that membership decided that we had to do something. In the meantime, the purported Secretary General says that he's communicating with AIBA. AIBA is communicating with him. But at no point in time was any communication sent to membership as to what is happening with AIBA or what AIBA is communicating with boxers and the membership of the Boxing Association. So we had no communication at all from what was the then Secretary General, the Secretary of the Boxing Association. So he's only saying that there was communication between him and AIBA is directing him what to do. We met as a membership.
By the way, before you continue, you're talking about AIBA, the International Boxing Association.
Federation or Association. Yes.
And who at the same time had been going through their own problems, their own internal
And AIBA was going through a lot of problems then in terms of the relationship with the Olympic Committee and the viability in terms of financial status. So, having said that, the AGM met and they appointed a three-man committee. We met as a membership, including Brother Neil Roberts, who was the point person, as he says, Neil Roberts, Davis Adams, and Sebastian Steele as the interim committee put in place to draw up articles to have an election for the Boxing Association. We have all of the details of our meetings. We've had about 8 to 9 meetings, trying to draw up and come to common agreement how the election should run, seeing that we had concern about the constitution that was being used and us wanting the constitution of 2013 to be used because there was no other constitution. It was a document that was brought up. And we thought we had come to an agreement of how the election should run. And then lo and behold, when we set the date for election, Brother Neil Roberts decided that he would not agree with the conditions that we had set out and left us as an interim committee and went out on his own and decided to call an election. And that is where the problem came out of control. So he called an election for April 2021. That's last year. And Sebastian, we were left out. The general membership was left out of the process, and they went ahead to have an election, as he said, that was monitored by AIBA.
When you say the general membership, who you refer to as the general membership?
So that's another interesting situation. In the 2019 membership list, we had over 30-something members. Davis Adams, Deborah Stevens John, that was the membership list. We paid our dues. As a matter of fact, I paid my dues in 2019, and I paid for 4 years. So it would have been 19, 20, 21, 22, or I paid 2018, 20, 21, 22, and a number of members paid their dues. When the election was called, we were not afforded, no letter was afforded to us prior to the election that they were calling an election, to be honest, because he was doing it on his own. So on the date that nomination form was supposed to be sent in, and we had no prior information about nomination form, who should, as a matter of fact, it said nomination form should go to the general secretary. That's what we heard, who is also contending to become president. So there must have been a conflict of interest. We tried to tell him no. So the letter from Neil went out like this: welcome to annual general meeting and election of the executive of Boxing Association of Grenada at the Olympic House starting at 4 p.m. sharp. That was the letter that was sent. And immediately sent with that, and that letter came, he sent another letter which said, to all members of the Boxing Association, at the close of nomination on April the 6th, these were the only nominated candidates for election of the executive to be held on the 24th of April. And this letter was sent on the 24th of April.
So, well, okay, so
all right. In essence, when I decided for interest's sake, I will visit and I will go to participate in whatever way I could have participated, no matter what, that it was not done properly. When I got there, I was locked out, and you would have known all of that. Okay. There was police at the entrance of the Olympic House. I had my dues form, which showed that I had paid, and I was locked out, and a number of other members were locked out. Due members, registered members were locked out, and therefore, you could not have had an election where, even if we did not pay our membership dues, we should not have been locked out. So that is the story of the election of 2021.
So, Davis, it appears now that this is the second time regarding boxing and with police, you have been, been involved with boxing and police, because I don't want too much jump ahead, but it brings me a nice segue to just a recent experience you had as early as yesterday, I think, right? Regarding the police and the
Oh wow.
boxing ring
Yeah.
as the president of the Boxing Association of Grenada. Um, you know, police showed up to remove the boxing ring ahead of the boxing tournament scheduled for later.
Yeah. Now that's interesting. In the meantime, so I'll get to that in a sec. In the meantime, so they had the elections. A number of children were there. They had the elections. We decided to do an investigation and research because I wanted to get to BAG Inc. We decided that we had to take the matter to, in a legal way as much as possible. And in going the legal route, what we recognized was that although we had Boxing Association of Grenada and we were going on the mandate of membership, because all of the members that were bona fide members said, keep the committee functioning and get back to us and we will give you the direction to act. So we continue to function even if they had an election. We wrote to the Olympic Association to let them know what is happening. We gathered all our facts and so on. We wrote to AIBA, we wrote to the Ministry of Sport, we sent in all the documents as to our findings and what had happened. But we could not take the Boxing Association or hold an injunction against the Boxing Association of Grenada and neither take them to court because it was not a registered entity. In essence, we had to
Oh,
do it
oh,
straight with the General
you
Secretary.
said you said it was not registered,
It was not registered. And the laws of Grenada state as of
but
2017,
17,
once,
yeah,
yes, legislation stated that once you are representing a sport as a national body, as of 2017, you should be registered. You
yeah,
should be incorporated and you should have your
incorporated.
constitution. We try to communicate that to all and sundry and would not listen. So therefore, membership gave us the mandate, go ahead and register the Boxing Association of Grenada. So as of February this year, so you're talking about the election was held, as of February this year, we registered the Boxing Association of Grenada Incorporated based on the memberships, the, the support to register it as members, and that's what we did. So hence, we have Boxing Association of Grenada Inc., whether you have Inc. or Limited, whatever, we register the Boxing Association of Grenada, and that's the only legal
Mhm.
body, according to the laws of Grenada,
Yeah,
that can. Yes,
because I'm wondering, therefore, if that was the case, so why, therefore, the Grenada Olympic Committee was accommodating an association that wasn't registered and going according to the most recent laws of Grenada regarding being incorporated, being registered, etc., etc. I mean,
and the Olympic Committee would have to answer to the general public how they have thumbed the weights and the scales in terms of what they have done. Because by then, they we then they should have known that BHE was not registered. So even if by presidency had recognized them, they should have done the necessary research and told them to do what is right. That wasn't done. We wrote to them to ask them to to meet with them after we registered, to meet with the Olympic Committee. And they wrote back to us a letter because all we wanted to do was to bring unity to boxing. It's not that I didn't want to become president or all that sort of thing. All we want is an executive that will make the sport great again. And the secretary, we wrote only to meet, to have dialogue. That's the letter we sent to them, that we can have dialogue with the Olympic Committee, whoever it was, the executive, the general secretary, whoever it was. We just wanted to have dialogue with them. And we were not even saying to have dialogue between us and Neil, just dialogue so that we can bring things together. And this is the letter that we got on the 5th of May, 2022. That's this year. The Grenada Olympic. So just listen to the response. Remember, I said we asked them just to meet. The Grenada Olympic Committee, Inc. confirms receipt of your letter April 11, 2022. The board met and discussed the content of your correspondence and continues to be guided by its bylaws, which in Article 4, subsection 1 states, the company shall not affiliate more than one national association for each sport governed by an international federation. In addition, the company must satisfy itself that all the above referenced national association exercise a real and specific sport activity in Grenada and at the regional and international level, in particular by organizing and participating in competition and implementing training programs for athletes. As a consequence, the Grenada Olympic Committee Inc. confirms its affiliation to the Boxing Association of Grenada (BAG) and currently recognizes its president Neil Roberts and executive committee as the national association carries out the above mentioned function. Kind regard, Vida Bruno Victor, General Secretary. We ne-
But before you go on, above mentioned regarding fulfilling the requirements, including tournaments and blah blah blah. But you're speaking about for 4 years they have not been anything regarding boxing.
Not a
So
thing.
right away, I think they would have failed on many grounds. But you continue.
And so the General Secretary sent us this letter, which told me straight up that she did not read the letter or she did not pay attention to what we required because we were not asking her to recognize us. All we want is mediation. Well, not necessarily mediation, but speak to us because at the end of the day, we have to manage our affairs as their legal rep told them, let boxing do its own thing. So all we wanted was to meet, let her know where we are at, and so that they have an idea of what is happening in Grenada. And this is what we got about recognition, which is not what we spoke about. So this brings me now to the talk about the police and the tournament. Yes.
Okay, but before you go on to that, you said that Bag Incorporated registered in February of this year. Okay,
Correct. Yes.
And during that process, I guess as much you folks were doing a lot of groundwork. You attempted, as you say, as early as May to have dialogue,
Yeah.
not interference, not whatever, but just dialogue.
Correct.
And it was turned down on the basis of, I guess, as much some level of misinterpretation of the correspondence. Okay. So after that, I guess as much you all continue with, as you say, boots on the ground as per usual, and we came to the situation of last Saturday.
Resort. Yes. And this
La-
was last resort
yeah,
because
I'm saying.
because we wrote to Brother Neil Roberts to meet with us.
Mhm.
We sent email. As a matter of fact, we had a bailiff send him a letter to let him know of what was happening and to encourage him to meet with us um, because we were doing our groundwork. So we emailed, we sent letters through a bailiff. We got no response from anybody. We sent letters to the Grenada Olympic Committee, letters to the AIBA, letters to our Ministry of Sport, detailing in a as concise as possible everything from 2019 right up to the point where we were incorporated as an organization. And the truth of the matter is, the response from the GOC was very, I would say, lame. To deal with the matter. And so what we did was the last resort was to have election, which we did not want to have because we preferred to have dialogue and to come to an agreement. When membership recognized that there was um, no attempt being made to bridge the gap between the bodies to bring the sport forward, membership mandated that we should go ahead and have the election. We held an election last Saturday with the returning officer being Mr. Richard Peters, who is a sports fan and has been representing his sport in GOC. So we considered him a very transparent person. We held elections last Saturday, but in the process, this group has always been planning activities. We put together a 2-year cycle, a 1-year cycle, a 4-year cycle, so that when we meet, we can hit the ground running. In essence, what was happening is that we planned to have boxing quite a while ago for this date, today. And so when we had the election, we decided we were not going to postpone it. Let's have it even if the time was close. And so we decided to continue to have the box off, which we had never had in 4 years in Grenada. And in so doing, Sebastian Steele, where the last tournament was held in where the last tournament was held in Carriacou in 2018, he had a ring that was donated by the Olympic Committee to the Boxing Association of Grenada. Oh, yes? So he had the ring, he had his box off in Carriacou, and basically the ring was in Carriacou. So when we decided to have this tournament down here, of course, he had to bring down the ring so that we can bring back a little bit of excitement and energy and give the boxers hope that who would not have been privy to have a ring for quite a long time. And yesterday, not yesterday, Thursday, the ring came down from Carriacou and was dropped off at the youth center. And on Thursday, Neil Roberts appeared and with a letter to the youth center manager given by the general secretary of the Olympic Association, Vida Bruno Victor, that he should take the ring.
I haven't my monitor there. Explain to me what's going on there now.
Yes.
I don't know if you're seeing.
Yes, I'm seeing it. Yeah. So when the youth center manager told him that he cannot, he did not bring a ring here. I'm just paraphrasing. So he cannot allow anybody else to take the ring except Sebastian, the coach, our high-level coach. Neil left. And then yesterday, the ring was being put up. While the ring was being put up, I was called as president to come down to youth center by Sebastian because Brother Neil, the president of that BAG, unregistered, or whatever you call it, came with the letter again, along with Brother Ralph Lord, and they said that they have this letter from the Olympic Association that the ring should be delivered to Neil Roberts, president of the Boxing Association of Grenada. If I were to read you the letter, of course, I went to the police and told the police what was happening. The police came along and they listened to us. So let me read you the letter that was sent by the General Secretary of the Grenada Olympic Committee. So let me read. To Mr. Carter Lewison, Manager, Grenada Youth Center. Dear sir, we wish to confirm that the Grenada Olympic Committee purchased and gifted to the Boxing Association of Grenada a competition ring valued at whatever. This ring is presently on the premises of the Youth Center, and we seek your kind assistance to release the ring to Mr. Neil Roberts, President of the Boxing Association of Grenada. Any courtesies that can be extended to Neil and the Boxing Association on our behalf would be greatly appreciated. That's the letter that was sent through Neil Roberts to the Trade Center manager, and he was accompanied by Ralph Lord.
But why? I mean, give me some guidance there based on what you just read. Boxing ring gifted to the Boxing Association of Grenada, and the name Neil Roberts mentioned. I wonder why a name would be mentioned why would the Olympic Committee gifted something to someone, to an association, and still tag along the name of someone, meaning therefore that even if this person is not affiliated to the association, it gives the impression that the item that was gifted belongs to the individual.
Yeah. I'm still processing a lot of the information, but let me put it this way. As a layperson, we must remember that the association was called, as the GOC was called, to mediate. Then they were told to take their hands off. In essence, that was a matter that the Boxing Association of Grenada need to work out for itself through dialogue, which we have always called for. The Olympic Committee decided to take a hands-off approach, but at this time, they have decided that it is appropriate to put the thumb on the scale to solve a problem. And it is so sad that after 4 years, no local tournament, that before the tournament that was publicized, a day before the tournament, that desire to disappoint, that desire to kill, that desire to take away an expectation. I am surprised that adults are able to not be rational. Um, and now it seems as if we are taking sides when the conflict still remains. If we have to take Boxing Association of Grenada to court, Michael, there is no association like that. We can't take them to court. And if we have to take Neil Roberts to court, then it is private thing. And the Olympic Association is aware of that. So I don't understand why this would happen. Anyway, the police came, we had a discussion, and the police left because, as he said, that's a civil matter where dialogue is needed and not a criminal matter from his end. We have to get our legal representatives involved. So, as to why the Olympic Committee would give a letter signed by the GS to cause that sort of embarrassment, to cause that sort of black eye for boxing in Grenada, I think it is really poor judgment from my standpoint. And I do hope that instead that the Olympic Committee will continue to encourage dialogue and not continue to encourage fractionalism in the fraternity. Nonetheless, the ring is up. We are ready to rumble. We are ready to roll this afternoon and give boxers an opportunity to get a feel of what boxing is all about again.
Well, um, yeah, I was kind of curious as to why would there be an attempt to take the ring on the eve of a tournament when the ring was probably in Karakou for what, 4 years?
4 years, yeah.
Yeah, for 4 years, and there wasn't any attempt to get a ring. There wasn't any requests, hi guys, hand over the ring, whatever. But on the eve of a national tournament where boxers were are eager to box, that an attempt was being made to get a ring. But as you say, as of now, you can confirm that the ring is up. Well, I have a picture of the ring that was from last evening, but there has been no more attempts to remove the ring from the youth center. Can you confirm?
I can confirm up to this point there's no more attempt. But everyone makes decision based on his or her reasoning. Neil Roberts and whatever organization he runs that's unregistered will have to answer to the general public. The GOC would have to answer to the general public for its action. But we are continuing to forge ahead in an open, transparent manner, doing what the laws of the land require. First of all, to ensure that we conform to legislation in the land. No other person could register a boxing association of Grenada again. They would have to register a different association. And considering the fact that AIBA and the Olympic Committee are at so much, I mean, as you would have known, terrible loggerheads, at some point the GOC will have to
Mhm.
fall in line with where the IOC is in terms of what happens with Olympic boxing going forward. And we as an organization pledge our support to continue to carry out Olympic boxing as the bedrock and foundation to move boxers from an amateur sport into a professional sport where hopefully they can earn a living. So we have pledged that we're going to continue to promote Olympic boxing that is safe and secure, that is a beautiful sport for health, and push the sport forward with our plans starting today, as you would see, and we're going to unroll. Let me
Mhm.
give you another point. The Caribbean um, region is having a Caribbean Championships, or should have a Caribbean Championship soon in Dominica. And up to this point, if BAG was serious about boxing, they have not gone to anyone to register boxers for that tournament, and we are already way behind.
I mean,
We want
not just registered, but boxers in terms of getting boxers in training and all these sort of things.
correct,
Yeah.
and we are willing to support any move to ensure that boxers get an opportunity to expose their talent. So we don't care whether they're in this gym or in that gym. We just want if Neil was to call and say, "Hey, let's have I have some names. Do you have any names?" Even though we are competing, we would be happy to support because we want our boxers to be exposed. So I'm calling on all boxers in Grenada. Fear not for anything. If you want to participate this evening, come out because if the folks who had the association, or they said they have the association and the recognition of the GOC. And for my part, the GOC is not pushing them to get boxers involved, to expose them. Again, as I said, all of those would have to answer to Grenada public as to why we are in that situation and getting us out of it as soon as possible. But what we know, foundationally, we are the Boxing Association of Grenada, and we are legal entity. We are open. We have a functioning executive, a full executive, and all we want to do is take this sport forward.
All right, but talking about functioning executive as well, what's about being recognized? Because that is another hurdle. Have you corresponded with the Grenada Olympic Committee, the same Grenada Olympic Committee, the Ministry of Sports, in terms of local stakeholders, Caribbean boxing, AIBA? I mean, give us an idea of, since last Saturday, what has been the status quo in terms of communicating with the relevant stakeholders.
And that for us is very important. Even before we had election, we have always been communicating with the stakeholders. As I said, the GOC has several communication from us detailing why we are where we are. AIBA has communication for us, and they have never responded. Not even to the GOC have they responded. Our Ministry of Sport has communication prior to and after our election. And we have sent communication, our Caribbean family, we haven't sent official communication to them as yet. That I'm not so sure, but I think we have communicated to them verbally, and official documents will go soon. We have sent our new executive to the Olympic Committee. I mean, very recent, and we hope that they would acknowledge receipt of the letter. If they haven't acknowledged receipt of many of our correspondences in the past, we hope they acknowledge receipt. And we just hope that at the end of the day, the issue of collaboration, communication, dialogue will bring everybody under one umbrella body for boxing in Grenada. Because at the end of the day, we don't plan to divide and rule. We plan to bring together. It's a messy situation, but we want to bring together everybody.
But do you think there's a level of hope in terms of receiving whether it's correspondence or some level of communication from the Ministry of Sports? That's some level of confidence that you're on the right track.
Yeah, and let me tell you, part of what the Olympic Committee said, and which is also, I think, is foundation for everything. As an association, what you have to do, you have to show yourself capable of exercising an activity in Grenada at local, regional, and international level, and by organizing and participating in competitions and implementing training programs for athletes. All of this we have qualified for. So I don't see any reason why our Ministry of Sport will not recognize us at all. The hurdle for the Olympic Committee, it's up to them, but I think they will be guided by the IOC as it makes a decision on AIBA. So we believe at some point that everything will fall into place. We will be recognized by all and sundry.
Yeah,
And,
but I'm saying that in the context of there's some level of recognition from the Ministry of Sports because you have been invited to participate in an activity today.
yeah, we are going to be participating in consultation on the sports policy because, again, as I told you, we have communicated to them. We have sent all the information that we can send to them, and they've recognized that we are serious. So they've invited us to the consultation. So that is a tacit approval or recognition that the Ministry of Sports sees us as a viable entity, organization, and want to have us on board. So I don't want to speak for them, but I believe that they're saying you are a viable organization and we can work with you from the Ministry of Sport end. As from the GOC end, that's a hurdle we will cross, and we hope that at some point dialogue will take place.
Okay. Just some comments there. Richard Mona is saying good afternoon to you. That's Mona in New York. And he's also saying the ring belongs to the Boxing Association of Grenada. Bottom line, talk done. And Vincent Roberts says, it appears that the interest of the Grenada Olympic Committee is not in boxing, but in an individual, long live boxing. I have full confidence in the integrity of Davis Adams and Sebastian, well, Steele he's referring to. They love the sport. And speaking about Sebastian Steele, it's quite ironic that our two, well, I should say, well, at least about three recognized, internationally recognized officials in Dr. Deborah Stevens John, um, in the medical commission, etc., and we have Sebastian
That's
Steele as a
still, yeah.
AIBA certified coach,
Three-star
three
coach,
star, and then
the only one
we have Bullen,
who is
Lyle Bullen,
yes,
who is
one
also
star
a one
and
star
one
certified
star certified judge, referee judge.
referee judge, right?
Mhm.
And well, and two of the three from Karakou, by the way.
Correct. Yeah.
Most of our boxers, national boxers, are actually from Karakou, and it appears that most of the boxers and officials, as it is now, giving support to BAG Inc., well, the Boxing Association of Grenada Incorporated, which you're the president of.
Yeah. And that is one of the things that I think was lost amidst all of this thing. All of the bona fide members of Boxing Association of Grenada stayed with the interim committee that they set up, which is now the Boxing Association of Grenada Incorporated, including referees, judges, coaches, experienced elite boxers, Rufus, and all of those guys. They did not waver that the association was not going in the right way and they needed a new direction. And they gave the complete support to everything that was done. As a matter of fact, nothing that was done without the input of the members. And at present, we have over 30, 40 members who are legally registered and entitled to vote when we had our election. And so many people are calling and asking us that they want to take up membership. And I believe that this evening, folks who come, they will be given the opportunity to take up membership. We believe by the end of this boxing activity, we would have almost 100 people who are
Okay,
members of the Boxing Association of Grenada Incorporated.
I was just reminded that we should not forget Jewel Lewis, who is at AIBA
Certified level one.
certified level one, right?
And he's with us also, yes.
That's what I'm saying, because he was also getting the boxing ring. Jewel Lewis is one like our good friend Grant. You know, that just boxing is in the blood, you know?
Correct.
And I would really like to see Jewel, probably from the Ministry of Sports point of view, assist Jewel in terms of probably as a coach in, you know, the schools or whatever it is, because boxing is one of the sports that's not represented under the ministry in terms of coaches, right? It was one of those.
And quickly, Michael, I want to say this. So this is our first activity. We are going to be rolling out our plans going forward. But not just that. We want to reach out to our diaspora because we believe in collaboration. We believe in reaching out. We believe that we have to extend gyms beyond Carriacou and St. George. And those are part of the plan. Those are parts of the plan that we have. We want to continue the process of training our referees, our judges, our boxers. During the pandemic, Michael, let me just let you know that while this so-called Boxing Association was sitting and hiding, doing nothing, we, the members, led by Dr. Deborah Stevens John, organized at least 8 virtual activities with various persons from throughout the Caribbean in emotional health, in referee judging, in coaching, in hand wrapping, folks from Trinidad, from Barbados, from throughout the length and breadth of the Caribbean, and invited everyone to attend so that we can keep our mental health, we can keep ourselves safe. We have done all of that, and this is what is leading us up to today, where members have confidence that we'll continue to organize activities.
All right. Well, bang on target, because I know you have to run off to the consultation.
Yes,
folks.
Yes,
today is the consultation for the national associations, and that's the first main thing. Boxing Association of Grenada Inc. Well, it will left to be seen if both organizations show up to the consultation. But as far as I know, you were invited as the legal entity Fitzroy Adams is saying, continue working hard, Mr. Adams, watching from New York. And certainly, those of you in the diaspora, as Mr. Adams said, he would like the support of you in whatever way possible because they're trying to make boxing great again. Their first activity is actually this evening, 6 o'clock at the Grenada Youth Development Center. Boxing returns, and as the late Johnson St. Louis will say, the youth center will be transformed into a makeshift Caesar's Palace. We get ready to rumble. I'm getting back into my, I was a ring announcer.
Of course.
I was a ring announcer many years ago, so
Yeah.
I just remember all these things.
Yeah.
But nice to know. Davis, and I don't think it will be live. Probably somebody may just stream something. Somebody may just put up something. We normally will get something. I don't think it will be live. It's not organized live, but someone may just put up photos and little video about. So But
Yeah.
I want to wish you all the best. And for me, I support boxing, and I am always there to support the sport of boxing. I was a bit disappointed over the years that there was nothing happening for the boxers, and I felt it especially for those in Karakou, because we have so many of these boxers in Karakou and so many of the young boxers, particularly from Karakou. And I mean, just year after year, all you're doing is just like going to the gym, and I mean, it's I want to congratulate them for persevering, because I'm certain if it's in another sport, folks would have moved on already.
Correct.
They would have moved on already.
Correct.
Because it can't be for 4 years, nothing happening, and all you're doing is just going and spar, going in the gym, and doing workouts and things like that. No competitions, nothing like that. So I want to wish you
and nobody has held them accountable. Well, nobody seems to be able to hold anybody accountable. And for me, that's a pity. And I believe what we are doing, we have a ring. It's the property of the Boxing Association of Grenada. We are going to take that ring throughout the length and breadth of Grenada, Karakou, and Petit Martinique. And we can assure you that everybody will get a chance to see boxing.
What gives you the impression that the attempt yesterday on Friday to take the ring won't continue some other time? I mean, is there any indication that that's the end of it, and the ring will stay as the property of the Boxing Association of Grenada?
Yes.
Because there's a letter signed by the General Secretary of the Grenada Olympic Committee, says that the ring was gifted to this organization, and as this person as president. I mean, so what gives you confidence that it will
what
end
name
there?
Yeah, personally, first and foremost, public pressure will embarrass what has happened. It was embarrassing, to be honest, to stop boxing. Secondly, if they choose, because this is a civil matter, if they choose to go to court, I hope they have enough stuff to present to show that they have what it takes to own property in Grenada as an association. I hope they can do that. I know they can't. So hence I'm saying I don't think they will continue doing that. I think the strategy will change, maybe, but I am confident that what has been exposed to the public now, the general public will say, you can't do that anymore, because who you are affecting is not Davis Adams. You're not affecting Deborah Stevens Journal or Arthur Pierre or Oliver Patrick. You're affecting boxers. So try something else. Try to organize tournaments instead. So I don't anticipate anything else. I mean, I'm confident. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I am confident that boxing will be great again. That's my confidence. So
thank you.
Thanks very much, Davis. And I know you have to run off now to participate in the consultation. So all the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us. And we look forward to the input of our diaspora. We have quite a few folks out there. You know what boxing entails and involves. We will send additional information as we get our stuff going, our letterhead, our contact numbers, and so on and so forth. We'll let you know more in the coming days and weeks so that you can communicate with us in a way that will only allow boxing to move from strength to strength. So look forward to a lot of information as well as contacts, our email address, our telephone numbers. All of those will come soon.
Okay, thank you very much,
You're
Davis.
welcome.
Okay
Thank
then.
you so much.
Folks, that's Davis Adams. He's the president of the Boxing Association of Grenada. That's BAG Incorporated. And as you heard from Davis, that an attempt was made to remove. Let me just show you this, in case you just joined us late. An attempt was made to remove the ring. This is actually the ring that is set up for the boxing tournament this evening at the Grenada Youth Center. So the boxing ring was actually in Carriacou, as far as I heard, and they brought it from Carriacou, as all the boxers were and training, etc., etc. They brought it down from Carriacou, set it up, and there was an attempt to remove the ring from orders from the Grenada Olympic Committee. There's actually a letter that was signed by the General Secretary of the Grenada Olympic Committee, as read by Mr. Davis Adams. Police got there. In fact, they were armed police, as you can see here. Yeah, he's armed. Calls were made, etc., etc. Eventually, I think, from what I understood, is that the officer called his superior. The superior listened and then decided that that is not a criminal matter for the police to be involved in. And there were documents showed that the Boxing Association of Grenada Incorporated, headed by Mr. Davis Adams, is legally registered in Grenada. And therefore the police decided that there would be a hands-off approach, and they retreated, as I was made to understand, that they retreated, and said, this is for you all to decide on. It's sad to know that that is the direction of sports going in. And I'm just hoping and I'm wishing for good sense to prevail, and that our sportsmen and sportswomen should be the ones who we should have in focus, and not individuals. As Vincent Robert rightly said earlier there, that, and I agree with that totally, that if I can put it up again, that it appears that the interest of the Grenada Olympic Committee is not in boxing, but in an individual. Okay? It shouldn't be, because, listening to the letter read by Davis Adams, I'm wondering why the name of an individual is being linked to the ring. If the ring was gifted to an association, it is to an association. And whether or not the individual is there or not, 5 years, 10 years from now, it is to the association, And I think the GOC erred on the part of including the name of an individual, because it means that that individual can decide that when he or she is no longer a part of the association, that he's going with the ring, that he or she is going with the ring. And that should not be the case. The ring was gifted to the association. See, sports in Grenada. Sometimes, sports is what should be bringing us together, but sometimes we allow sports to bring us apart. In many parts of the world, they use sports as a unifying force, bringing people together, bringing cultures together, etc. It appears that in Grenada, that to some extent, at times, we get the impression that sports is bringing the divide, things like that. Folks, it's a sporting weekend this weekend. It's a sporting weekend this weekend. The song is, a bit, obliterated. But boxing is on at the Grenada Youth Center from 6 o'clock this evening. There is also the swimming, OECS swimming championships continuing in St. Lucia. Grenada is represented by 50 plus, I would say. Well, about 34, 35 swimmers. And then you have, when you consider the athletes, the coaches and officials and parents, I understand it's about 50 plus. So here again is an example of sports tourism, even within the islands, and that's just the OECS and swimming. Could you imagine Grenada hosting OECS swimming championship on a weekend, and just one country alone, one of the countries alone, with 50 something, 60 something, that you know, hotel accommodations and taxi and blah 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 and things like that. So the power of sports. Yeah, so Grenada is about 50, I understand 55 or so in terms of total when you consider the swimmers and the parents and the officials, including coaches, etc. Quite a bit being represented. And then there's football at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium, a doubleheader on this evening. The first game is at 7 o'clock in the evening. It's Hurricane. They're coming up against Five Stars. That's Hurricane, yeah, from St. Mark, coming up against Five Stars. And then in the second game of the doubleheader at 9 o'clock, it is St. John Sports. They're coming up against Paradise International. So boxing at the Youth Center, football is at the Kirani James Athletic Stadium. There's swimming over in St. Lucia. That's the OECS Swimming Championships. Grenada continuing. Hopefully, they can bag some more medals and win the championships. And oh, there's cricket. Yeah, there's also cricket, Windward Islands, Volcanoes. They're down in Trinidad, and they're battling in their final game. Hopefully, they can move on to the next round or the next stage of the tournament in Antigua. Folks, so that's all for this week. Hopefully, you can join me next week, God's willing, for another program. It has always been a pleasure. I want to wish you all the best, and for you to continue supporting our sportsmen, our sportswomen, continue supporting sports. Until then, have yourself a pleasant weekend.